What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 3 of my deep dive into the Moody Blues studio catalog. Recently saw a list of the two lists, top 25 British rock bands of all time, top 25 prog bands of all time. The Moody Blues were on both lists, and I realized I don't think I had ever heard a Moody Blues album in its entirety, in which I paid attention. I had been in a room before, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going through them in order. We're on album number 3 now, In Search of the Lost Chord. So I'm going to talk about my thoughts on this one, and then I will show where I would rank this among the other 3. I'm going to go on through the entire catalog. So I did discover that I know 2 more songs. I thought I had only knew 3 Moody Blues songs, Tuesday Afternoon, Nights in White Satin, and something that's from the 80s that I don't know the name of. But I'm not doing any research into this band, just listening to the albums. And I know Ride My Seesaw. When that song dropped on this album, it's like the first real song. There's like a little spoken word intro before that. Amazing, amazing song. Absolutely loved it. I know this from the radio. An awesome, awesome psych rock song with, they do trippy hippie well. Like, I know this, they made this list of the top 25 prog bands, but this is some really fantastic psych music. Lyrically, the thematic themes of the lyrics, we'll get to the other song I know after that. Musically, this is some of the best sort of drug-infused psych music I've ever heard. This is like, to me, when I think of my experience, like with all the hippies I knew in college, I went to Berkeley, was a deadhead. I know why there were a lot of Moody Blues fans, because this is so prototypical hippie in like the best way possible. So I knew Ride My Seesaw, which I think is a fantastic song. And I also knew Legend of a Mind, the song Timothy Leary's Dead, which I always loved that because the way they say Timothy Leary's dead, you have the L in Leary, the S in Leary's, and then the dead, LSD. So I always thought that was a fantastic use of language to have that sort of in your mind, since Timothy Leary was a great advocate for LSD. But this album, In Search of a Lost Chord, it is very much about sort of tapping into like astral projection, trapping into your thoughts, your mind, your brain, unleashing the power of your mind. By the time they reach the end of it, that lost chord is, or they reference Om, the Om, the power of the Om. And that is how you find that last chord, is you tap into the Om. I don't know if it's a concept album, but there's definitely sort of a conceptual thread that runs through a lot of the lyrics. Starts off with, there's 12 songs on here. Starts off with this, the narration that's similar to the narration that's on the previous album, Days of Future Past. And then that narration kind of has this sort of ascending orchestral sort of, like both the tone of the narration and the music kind of like ascends into this almost, it doesn't erupt into this volcanic eruption, but it reaches this peak, and then we drop right into Ride My Seesaw, bum, dum, bum. Great energy, awesome 60s hippie psych song, fantastic kickoff into this album. The second song is Dr. Livingston, I presume, and that has your more like whimsical, early Traffic, psych pop English vibe that I'm not quite the fan of. This one, like Ride My Seesaw, is one of those like classic psych songs that, like, there was that huge 2010 sort of psych resurgence, bands like Temples, MGMT to some degree. Like Ride My Seesaw sounds like a Temple song. Like that sounds to me like when Temples dropped their albums, like this is an inspiration for that. Dr. Livingston, I presume, still sounds dated. To me, this is like a very late 60s British sound. Not my favorite. I'm not a big fan of that. Does have some nice, cool, like psych sections that kind of pop up throughout the song, but for the most part, it's not my favorite type of like psych music. House of Four Doors, little slower prog energy. I think we got the mellotron in here, right? They use a mellotron, right? Yeah, there's some definitely more mellotron action in there. Slightly more ballady proggy vibe, that mellotron prog vibe. This is like 60s sort of soft rock, but with like much spacier vibes to it. Nice little interlude in the middle. They do a lot of like the proggy element of Moody Blues, I think, in that like the songs tend to go different places, and you'll have like different musical sections within even like a 4-minute song. So, and House of Four Doors has a lot of different little sections. I did not count. I wonder if there's 4 sections and each one is a different door. I don't know, but this is definitely more of a low key kind of proggy psych suite. I wonder if there are 4 sections. Darn, I wish I had listened to that. But that would be interesting. After that, this is a pretty good song. I don't think the melodic hooks are quite there, but it's got an interesting little journey over the course of its 4 minutes. And then we get Legend of a Mind, which is kind of like a little mini epic. You get like the sort of day in the life song within a song, where you start off with like this Timothy Leary's dead part, and then you go into like this definitely more upbeat pop psych middle section. They're encouraging you to fly the astral plane. Astral projection is sort of a theme of this song. But then anytime that sort of Timothy Leary's dead sort of melody kind of seeps in, it gives it this really eerie psych quality to it that's pretty fantastic. We get some nice flute, just some really nice interludes, sort of psych prog interludes in here. Really proggy middle section. Really cool song. It's like 6+ minutes. Pretty cool song. And then that goes into like a House of the Four Doors reprise to close out the first half of the album. Again, that Mellotron comes back in. Strong side 1. For me, side 1 is the stronger of the 2 sides on this album. Other than Dr. Livingston, I presume, which kind of takes me out of it a little bit. It's got a little bit too much brightness to it, where the other stuff does seem to have a little more of a psychedelic intensity. Even if it's not dark, it's still like simmering. A really strong side A. Side B starts off with a song called Voices in the Sky, which is a very sort of gentle, folky, sort of acoustic ballad. The voices in the sky are birds. I think there's a bluebird, there's a nightingale. This is very much the voices in the sky don't appear to be hallucinogenic things in your head that aren't there. These are birds. It's kind of a sweet song. It's kind of like, a sort of pastoral psych song. Kind of cool, but I don't know how didn't really strike me, didn't really grab me. I did enjoy it though. The Best Way to Travel is next. Thinking happens to be the best way to travel. Again, typing into the power of your brain right here. This is very Beatles vibes, sort of like a Revolver, Sgt. Pepper era, almost like I'm Only Sleeping, like kind of, I don't know if clunky is the right word, but kind of a slightly stomping sort of 60s rock vibe. Nice breakdown in the middle of this, like psych. We got that psych energy in the middle of it. Anytime they sound like the Beatles, and I think The Best Way to Travel is a perfect example of this. The Beatles like take something like I'm Only Sleeping. There's definitely a psych energy to that, but the Moody Blues will always take it one step further and take you deeper down that rabbit hole, or have an interlude that just kind of breaks apart the song and lets you just kind of saturate in the psych vibes, where the Beatles didn't really do that in a song. Day in the Life, I think, is the one song that stands out of having like different things, or Abbey Road, but then each song was broken up into different parts and got its own title and stuff like that. So The Best Way to Travel, while it has that sort of Revolver side to it, it goes to some dark places that I don't think the Beatles were doing at that point, at least not in this way. Visions of Paradise, kind of a nice, slow, trippy, hazy type song, kind of beautiful, kind of calm. I think the visions are of like, there are visions of paradise. This is like a song that's like, this is what you're looking at if you look at paradise. It's got that, the music goes with the title. There's a little bit of intensity as the song goes on, where maybe not everything is perfect in paradise. It's not quite, but it doesn't go really dark or go anywhere too intense. Actor is some nice pop psych, kind of dreamy, kind of calm, little mid-tempo. Has a great line, put out your problems with your cat. So yeah, do that. When you put out your cat, put out your problems with it. We don't let our cat out anymore. Well, actually, our cat unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but we stopped letting it out because right after we got it, it got hit by a car, broke its hip, survived, but we don't let it outside anymore because we did it. So it became an indoor cat. So be careful if you do put out your problems. Maybe my cat was trying to get rid of my problems by giving them to the car. I don't know. Then you get the song called The Word, which is more narration, telling you that finding that last chord, you need to tap into Om. And then the final song is the Om, and it's got sitar. It's got a very Indian vibe. I think there's some tabla in it. Is there tabla in it? I'm sure I can look at what instruments are being played here. Yeah, there's tablas. And this is your very, again, Beatle-esque in like a George Harrison sort of way. Not my favorite song on here. But I do think the second half doesn't quite have the punch as the first half. Ride My Seesaw, classic track. Legend of a Mind, classic track. The first half is stronger. The second half I don't think is bad, but it definitely doesn't engage me as much as that first half did. So, good album. I enjoyed it. I think it's great hippie music, great psychedelic music, great 60s music. I definitely understand why this would have been big among like hippies and psychedelic drug users and, you know, anybody in this sort of subculture in the 60s and 70s. And I understand why so many people were Moody Blues fans when I was going to school in like the 80s and 90s in college, because I went to a very liberal hippie university, and this seems like something these people would embrace and like want to go back to the time when this was the music people were listening to. So good album, but in ranking it with the other two, I have it at number 2. I do think Days of Future Past I enjoy more, while I'm still trying to really come to terms with some of the orchestral stuff on Days of Future Past. I do think the first half of Days of Future Past, some of the orchestral stuff is too sort of cinematic for me, or too soundtracky maybe, or too literal in its sort of matching with the lyrics or matching with what it's trying to convey. You know, like the song on that Dawn and Morning, it feels like I'm watching a Disney, like I'm watching Bambi or something. But I do think my overall enjoyment of Days of Future Past, like the second half of that album kills. And so it gets better as I go on. And then I appreciate Nights in White Satin way more than I ever did listening to it on the radio. So I have Days of Future Past at number 1, and Search of the Lost Chord would be number 2. If you could put the first half of Search of the Lost Chord with the second half of Days of Future Past, that's like a 10 almost. That's like a S tier album. But yeah, that's my ranking so far. So anyways, I'm enjoying this so far. I've enjoyed all 3 of these albums. I love the titles of these albums. I'm really looking forward to the next couple because they also have kind of weird, enigmatic, sort of very hippie-ish titles. Interested to see what other songs I know, because I'm assuming that there's going to be more songs that I'm like, oh, I know this song. I don't think I knew Ride My Seesaw was a Moody Blues song. I knew Legend of a Mind. I knew that was a Moody Blues song. As soon as that started, I was like, oh, I know that. Ride My Seesaw, I maybe just thought that was like a one-hit wonder from like 60s band, from some random 60s psych band. I did not know that was the Moody Blues somehow. Or maybe I did and it just forgot it. But anyways, that's all I got. Enjoying this. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Would love your thoughts on this album. Anything you know about the Moody Blues, anything you know about the backstory of this album, I would love to know if there's a Timothy Leary connection with this band. I'm trying not to look too much into this band until I'm done with this. And I know some of these are going to stay in my rotation. But if there's a reason, personal, why they mentioned Timothy Leary, and if maybe they had a connection with him, or just in the way, like, you know, Dylan turned the Beatles on to psychedelics, was Timothy Leary somehow involved in this band? Would love to know stuff like that. And are there only 4 parts in House of 4 Doors? I know I'm going to go find that out myself, but if you know that, save me some time. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do those things, and go listen to this album. First half of it is fantastic. All right, peace. Talk to you later.